Meeting to order. This is the December 20th, 2017, our last 2017 Planning Board meeting for the seating of Concord. Let's run the roll if we could, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Chairman Woodfin.
Here.
Vice Chair Foss.
Here.
Councilor Champlin.
Here.
Member Meyer.
Here.
Member West.
Here.
Member Fox.
Here.
Member Hicks.
Here.
Member Regan.
Here.
And Member Rosenberger.
Here.
All right. Item 3 on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our November meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Second. A motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Quick overview of tonight's agenda. First and foremost, we've all got new tablets here, so if you see anybody playing around with them and trying to turn them up and down and questioning staff on why it's turning off and on, that's why. So bear with us as we move through to the 20th century with tablets as opposed to some of our older technology. So we've got a couple of items that have been pulled off of tonight's agenda. Subdivision application for Talent Road. Determination of completeness has been postponed until January 17th. Do we renotice that, or is that?
No.
This is it. This is the renotice, and the minor subdivision at 10 Lakeview Road has been 110 Lakeview Road has been postponed to January 17th as well. So if anybody's here for those, we will not be hearing those tonight. And that moves us into item 5 under consent items. Could we address that, Madam Clerk?
Sure, would you like me to read them both into
Please
the record?
do. Yep.
5A is 117 Manchester Street, LLC, requesting major site plan approval for the renovation of a 22,000 square foot building to accommodate 31 residential units, along with associated site improvements at 117 Manchester Street in the Highway Commercial District. And item 5B is Alan Moses, on behalf of Pennacook Assisted Living Facility, requesting major site plan approval for a 2-story, 6,600 square foot addition to an existing building for 18 residential units and associated site improvements, and a conditional use permit to allow construction of fewer parking spaces than is required at 30 Borough Road in the medium-density residential and general commercial districts. Staff does recommend that both applications be determined complete and the public hearing set for the January 17th Planning Board meeting.
Okay, so we've got those 2 items in determination of completeness. Staff has found that they are complete. If we take a motion to approve those.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we determine that both of these applications are complete.
Okay. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We've got design review applications by consent. For those in the audience, there's items that are going to be read into the record that we will approve on consent, which means we won't address them individually. If anybody would like to speak to a specific item that is read into the record, has a question about them, we'll ask if you have a question. We have 1 or 2 items that have been pulled off already, and we'll identify those as well. Madam Clerk, could you read those items into the record?
Sure. 6A through 6G, you'd like
Yes,
me to
please.
read? Okay, 6A is VCA Real Property Acquisition requesting ADR approval to install a new wall sign and replacement monument sign at mine keeps turning off, 1 Intervale Road in the Gateway Performance District in the Residential Open Space District. 6B is Reschic Boutique on behalf of TNR French Associates LLC, requesting ADR approval to install a new wall sign at 10 North State Street in the Central Business Performance District. 6C has been pulled from consent. That's Centerpoint Church on behalf of First Baptist Church of Concord, requesting ADR approval to install a new wall sign at 20 North State Street in the CBP District. 6D is 256 Investments Associates, LLC, requesting ADR approval to install internally illuminated replacement panels in an existing freestanding sign and install 4 new internally illuminated wall signs at 106 Loudon Road in the General Commercial District. 6E is Northern New England Teleops, requesting ADR approval to replace a wall sign at 12 South Street in the Civic Performance District. 6F is D.E. Whiting, LLC, on behalf of the Gabrielli Family, LP, requesting ADR approval to install a new projecting sign at 1 Merrimack Street, Pennacook, in the Central Business Performance District. And 6G is Verizon, on behalf of Venezia Realty, LLC, requesting ADR approval to replace an internally illuminated wall sign at 62 DeMonte Drive in the Gateway Performance District. And as I mentioned, 6C was previously requested to be removed.
So I apologize. I guess we didn't need to read those in the record, but you did a great job. I didn't want to interrupt you. So. Item 6C has been pulled. That's the Centerpoint Church. Anybody in the audience wish to pull one of these items and discuss it further? No, so we'll address the items on the list, 6A, B, D, E, and F, and G, by consent. If anybody'd like to make a motion to approve those items on consent, we'll accept that motion.
Mr. Chairman?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'd just like to ask staff, are any of these already up?
I believe there have been temporary permits for some of them. I'm not aware that any of them have been installed truly without having their permits, without having get temporary sign permits.
So you can install if you have a temporary
If
permit?
you have a temporary sign permit,
You can install the actual,
to be honest, I'm not clear what it gives you permission to do. That I'd have to check with Craig Walker on that. I can get back to you next.
that'd be great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the consent items? Somebody like to make a motion to approve those items on consent?
Move approval.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Yes.
Are we specifying subject to the conditions of?
Subject to
ADR?
conditions of ADR, yes, sorry. So anybody like to make a motion? I'll start from scratch because I want to make sure that's clear. So anyone like to make a motion to grant the applications by consent, to approve the items by consent with ADR approvals as outlined?
Move approval subject to architectural design review consent.
Comments? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We'll address item 6C, which is Centerpoint Church, on behalf of the First Baptist Church at Concord, requesting ADR approval to install a new wall sign at 20 North State Street. Is the applicant here? Yeah. Come on up, sir. You can sit right here. How come this isn't opening? Heather,
Excuse me?
how come this doesn't open?
Yeah, how can we, yeah.
Oh, there it goes. Hi, could you state your name for the record?
Dave Pelletier.
Okay, Dave. And we pulled this off of consent. I believe, Carol, you pulled this off consent, all right?
I just wanted to have a discussion. It just feels really, really big for the space. That was my only concern. And I gather that ADR wanted the background to be a little darker, which would help make it a little less in your face, but it just still seems really big for that space under the eaves to me. So I just wanted to get what other people felt about that.
Can I, if you don't mind, we have some other pictures, because the picture you have, I believe, shows it just on that one small building, which is part of it, but there's actually, the building itself is 182 feet long. And these other pictures show it at a different angle.
We'd love to take a look at those, yeah.
There. A bunch over there.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Just pass those down. Whoops.
Plus the fact that it actually sits 75 feet from the curb, back from the curb, so we needed some degree of size to make it visible.
So there was some discussion at ADR to incorporate this, I believe, the background of the logo a little bit more. And is this the revised version?
Yes.
So this shows this revised?
It's the watermark that we've added to the back.
So that's going to be kind of in the background to break up all the white, right?
Yes.
And it's a plain white and then the call out and then the letters of the church, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this
That
design
helps.
certainly
It does help.
helps.
Yeah, it does help break it up.
It still
large.
feels really big to me,
Still
just
large.
in scale with the angle of the roof and everything, but.
Any other comments, Suzanne?
So I'm assuming that it fits within the ordinance as far as the square foot. I mean, I agree, because
Right.
it's overpowering, because they're kind of taking the square footage of the whole building and not just the facade, where
It's the frontage along the entire.
right, so
So you could fill the whole building with a sign
that
just
being
because they
said, I
could technically
very
do
much
it.
agree with the scale, is way out of scale for that side of the building.
So I think the zoning regulations and the reason you can put it through at that particular size is because it's square footage based on,
Right.
you know, the street frontage.
Right.
So if it was on the big part of the building, I think you're probably right, so.
I think, don't we still have purview though, because?
Yep, yep.
I'm kind of surprised the design, you didn't pick up on that, but it just seems overpowering, and I don't know if it would be less so if it was maybe oval.
So this,
I mean, you'd still have the same font size, but it would be maybe
so
a
it's
little
16
smaller.
feet long by 6.3 feet tall,
That's huge.
which is a sheet of plywood and a couple feet on the top of it. Any comments?
No, it's, the ordinance is 150 square feet, and that's 101.5 square feet for this particular sign. And, you know, when we decided, I mean, you still have to see it, and granted, it looks big, it's white against the brick, but you're still quite a ways from the road. Not that that's a huge issue, but it's not like a large sign right on the road. So people walking by, even on the other side of the road or other side of the street, where the YMCA is, which has a much bigger sign with less frontage, is, I think, definitely within the boundaries, and people will be able to see it.
Yes, Byron?
Thank you. This may seem to be an inconsequential question, but is the image positioned on the photograph the way it is because of the parking sign that is in the foreground? In other words, I wonder if this at its current proposed scale or size, if it would be more in scale if in fact the sign was dropped, I don't know, it's hard for me to, I'll say a foot, but, you know, I mean, it dropped closer to the top of the two doorways, as opposed to being nestled up there in the peak of the building.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I don't believe it had really anything to do with the parking sign.
That's
I think
just
you're right,
where
but
you
yeah,
felt,
from a
yeah.
perspective. The part of the reason it's put at the height as it is that in the brick on that particular wall facing, there's two insets, probably 2 feet by 2 feet, that are inset into the brick. They're almost like, you know, how to describe them, but they're
Yeah,
that size inset in. So the height of this will cover those, so that we don't want, you know, it would look funny if it was dropped a foot and you could see like 6 inches of the insets on the top of it. So this one, the height it's at covers those insets.
You don't like the insets?
Well, the insets are fine, except if we dropped it,
Then it would be.
it would cover it would be right at the top of the doors.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. I just kind of hate to see that you're masking an architectural feature, you know, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's your call. I mean, what would happen? I'm sorry, follow up, Mr.
Certainly.
Chairman. So what would happen if, say, the size, relative to the insets, if the size of the sign was reduced by like 6 inches to a foot all the way around?
I think we could live with that.
I saw another hand go up.
Well, was that your hand?
Suzanne?
Oh,
Yep.
well, the difference between the Y is also like a 4-story building. It's massive facades, and I think if the sign fits that building better, I just have a problem. And if you could make this a narrower, it's just really big on this nice little small facade that basically is like a 1-story building, that I think you probably could have come up with something. It's going to be very visible, even if it's shrunk down 25%. It'll still be very visible. And I think that what makes it, I mean, people who go there know it's on the grounds of this traditional church with the steeple. So I don't think it's going to be a visibility problem.
Yeah.
But it's just so big for that facade.
Well, you say the grounds, but everything is connected. These aren't separate buildings.
No, I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is that you've got this, it's not going to be hard to find. And I don't think the sign is going to necessarily help.
Right.
Does that identify where you go in?
Partly right to the left of there, yes. But it's not there to identify an entrance.
It's just there to identify the church.
Yes.
Again, to your point, I think too, you're not calling people in from the other side of the highway. Your only distance away is
Like
the
the
sidewalk
road.
on the other side of the
Yeah.
street. So a 16-foot sign is you're going to see it without a
Yes.
doubt. Byron?
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to ask if we could get a sense of the board as to whether, a reduction in size by 1 foot all around would be satisfactory and would address the concerns that have been expressed, since the applicant seems to be comfortable with that.
So a foot in length, a foot in,
Yeah, a foot in height, a foot in length, just shrink it down proportionally.
I feel uncomfortable like designing the sign because, I mean, it could look fine if it was a foot at the top and a foot at the bottom and it was long and narrow. So I would suggest that we ask them to come back with an alternative that reduces the size of the sign and not tie them into a foot all the way around, because you still end up, I mean, I would give them the option of just coming back with something that is not as big.
all right.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm just cognizant of a couple of things. One is, it's always difficult when we're seeing a facsimile of the sign to really judge well, or we're kind of going based on what it looks like on a piece of paper with an image applied at the general location of the sign. And also, I'm trying to balance whether it's worth having them come back in a month, to basically do something that we probably would be okay with anyway. And I want to, Suzanne, I want to respect your concerns. I mean, my thought is not to reduce it a foot at the top, foot at the bottom, but just like, proportionally, reduce each of these dimensions by 1 foot. That's all. Which maybe means six inches all the way around. But again, I think everybody's comfortable with the design of the sign. It's the proportion of the sign that seems to be causing concern. So
And the dimensions of the sign again?
well, we would reduce each of the dimensions by 1 foot. So the 190, subtract 12 inches from the 192.33.
So it's be 15, just over 15 feet by just over 5 feet high,
Yeah. Which is still a significant
which is
sign.
still a good sized sign.
That would be like the size of a door.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand you, like the facsimile of here,
Yeah.
it could be worse than what's shown here.
Yeah.
So.
I hate to have them come back like in a month and then find out that we still don't like it, if we can find a resolution.
All right. Sorry, Heather, I know you wanted to address something as well.
My question was just about the idea of the oval. I was wondering if anyone, because to me, I think that oval shape might make it seem much smaller without actually necessarily reducing the dimensions.
What oval
But,
shape?
yeah, like, if you just kept everything the same but sort of rounded the edges, do you think I think it would fit much better in that shape because you've got the points of the roof, and so it would sort of just look like, it would sort of blend better.
Well, I understand that. The issue, though, there would be the fact that we've just gone through a significant rebranding, relogoing, doing all of that, and with our designers, and an oval it would be the only oval we'd have in the whole place, including all the internal signs and everything else. So it really doesn't, that probably would not work.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Any member of the audience wish to address this application? So if you're amiable to a foot on either side, if there's support for that, Byron, we'll take a motion to grant approval for this sign as it's outlined here, or if there's a feeling that the sign should be pushed back and go through the process again, we could do that as well. So if we've got one or two motions, we'll hear them.
I'll move that we require the applicant to reduce the dimensions of the sign by 12 inches in each dimension.
Okay, that motion's been made. Anybody second? Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3 opposed. So let's see his hands again. So 1, 2, 3 opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 approved. So that motion carries. So you are set with that. Good to go.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that brings us through our items. Hey, look at that, I can get back to my agenda. Look at that. Rock star, huh? All right, so that brings us through item 6. We'll move on to items, no other items pulled off the consent agenda items, so we've got a public hearing, our public hearing session under item 7, site plan subdivisions, conditional use permit applications. If we could read item 7B into the record. Again, remember, if anybody came late, 7A was removed from our agenda.
No, 7A is
Oh.
on, it's,
Oh, it says
That was-
postponed to
oh,
January
that's the one,
17th.
I'm sorry. Mine says TF Bernier Sorrento.
Yeah, that's what mine said too. Up here it does, but part
Okay.
7B is Sorrento minor subdivision condo lot line
I've
adjustment.
got TF Bernier Incorporated on behalf of Sorrento Investments LLC and Gubbio Investment Associates LLC, requesting an amendment to a previously approved minor subdivision application to adjust the lot line between land condominium units 1 and 3 at 9 Triangle Park Drive in the Gateway Performance District. This is basically an amendment to a previously approved condo plan that was never recorded, and staff has no issues with it, and we recommend that it be amended as presented by the applicant.
Okay, so that's not on my cheat sheet here. So is there a public hearing component
Yes.
to this as well?
Yes.
Okay, so is this, should this be 7B then? Condo lot line
I
adjustment?
think that this is actually item 7.
It is 7A on our agenda.
Correct.
No,
Okay,
it's 7B on the
No,
agenda.
7B.
It's 7A on the agenda,
It's 7A.
on our agenda.
7A on the agenda.
This is off the web, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, that's 7.
That is weird.
What do you got, 7B?
Okay, is the
Sorrento
applicant here?
7B on our agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different on my little
Okay.
cheat sheet
Well, in
here.
any case,
In any way.
there is a public
Either
hearing.
way, it's a
Public hearing.
it's a public hearing component. Is the applicant here?
It's different on the website, if you go to the PDF.
Technology.
How can
Gotta
it
love
be
it.
different? It's the
Okay, no applicant is here.
Okay.
So the staff recommends approval for the minor subdivision as it's outlined. Let me just get to the report here. Hold on just a second. Any general comments, recommendations is to grant the minor subdivision approval. Precedent conditions outlined on your agenda, under the right agenda item here. Precedent conditions 1 through 6. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve that? I'm sorry, we got to step back one step. So there's a public hearing component. Would anybody like to address this application? No, so we'll close the public hearing, and if any member of the board has a question regarding this.
Mr.
Ian?
Chairman, I apologize.
Yes.
Am I looking at 7A or 7B?
You are looking at,
7A.
If you're looking at Legistar, it's 7A. Now, Matt, we'll see when you look on, if you're using a computer or Chrome, if you're not using Legistar, it's 7B. So the public, what they're seeing, Sorrento is 7B.
so this is a condominium subdivision application for Sorrento Investments LLC.
Thank you.
A or B, don't even look at that.
Okay.
At
I apologize.
at 9 Triangle Park, so I apologize. And again, so this is fairly straightforward, subdivision approval that staff recommends approval with those precedent conditions 1 through 6. If anybody'd like to
So moved.
make a motion to approve that. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Let's address the next item. Let's see what item that is. What's that going to be? So this is 7B, which in my agenda here is Foxfire Property Management on behalf of 2 Pillsbury Street LLC requesting minor subdivision approval to adjust lot lines between existing condominium units at 2 Pillsbury Street in the institutional IS district. Is the applicant here? Come on up. Could we, yeah, I'm sorry. So we'll open the hang on, stand right there, don't sit down. Do you have any comments from staff regarding this application? Come on up, I'm sorry. Come on up.
You approved previously something very similar at this location. It's an internal floor plan rearrangement. It was June 21st of this year that you approved something similar on the same floor, I believe. I think the applicant has a request for the 5th floor.
Correct.
Other than that, we're completely comfortable with what they've submitted.
Okay, so we'll follow procedure here, and we'll open the public hearing, and we'll invite the applicant up. Welcome.
The only thing I would ask is, we might make a slight change to the 5th floor request, so I was curious if we could sort of continue that, because I expect that we might be bringing a change back. The third floor, we plan on moving forward with as presented. Just, I'm not sure the process on that, but
Okay. I have no idea.
Yeah,
Steph?
we can just go ahead. So 3.2 is the motion. Well, 3.1 is a waiver that has to be granted, and 3.2 is the motion to approve. And we would just have you read off, grant approval for Unit C to Unit B, and then just leave off Units 5A, B, and C, and we'll take that up next month.
You'll need to
So the
address that
motion
next
would
month.
just exclude those units.
Okay, so we have a public hearing component to this. Can you tell us about this project, if you could?
basically, 2 Pillsbury Street LLC owns 2 suites on the 3rd floor of the building at 2 Pillsbury Street. We have an owner who's rented from us for 10 years, and they're basically just looking to acquire an extra, 400 square feet in suite. I think it's B. So basically, Suite C would be increasing and Suite B would be decreasing. So-
Okay, so no physical change, just
a wall.
Rearrangement, wall
Yeah.
changes. Okay. Any member of the audience wish to address this application? No? Any member of the board have a question of this applicant? Staff comments or recommendations? So in our packet, we've got a couple of items here. We've got a waiver request and we've got a subdivision plan approval. So under our agenda item 2, which is 2.1, the applicant is requesting a waiver in section 12.08 SDR. What's SDR?
Subdivision regulations.
Subdivision regulations, to not provide an existing condition plan based on the fact that no changes are proposed to the building or site.
These are your recommendations, 3.1.
Okay.
To give you the full recommendation.
Okay, so the recommendation, staff recommends that the board grant the requested a waiver from section 12.08 subdivision regulation to not provide an existing conditions plan based on the fact that no changes are proposed. And again, you can see the utilizing criteria. So we'll take a motion, if anybody would like to make a motion to grant that waiver as outlined in 2.1 and then 3.1 from staff recommendation.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and as we outlined in 3.2, to grant the minor subdivision approval plan to transfer approximately 355 square feet of Unit 3C to Unit 3B and consolidate 4,068 square feet of units, 5A, so we're not going to do that. So we're just going to do 3A and 3B, 3C and 3B, sorry. And we'll address the consolidation of Units 5. So all of our precedent conditions aren't affected by the change in the request from the applicant, right? So that 3.2 is with precedent conditions 1 through 6 as outlined in the packet. Would somebody like to make a motion to grant that minor subdivision approval as outlined there?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and roundly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So you are good to go. We'll see you next time for it.
We might
Oops,
wanna-
sorry.
We might want to make a motion to continue
So
the second part of the
that,
application.
so you don't have to reapply. So we'll make a motion to continue the second part of that minor subdivision plan approval to address items 5A, B, C, and B, 5A, sorry, of units 5A, B, and C into 5B. If somebody would like to make a motion to
So moved.
to grant that
Second.
continuance. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, my goodness.
That was to January 17th, correct?
January 17th, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to,
Yes.
yes, you're all set. Okay, that brings us to item 7C on our agenda. Could we read that into the record? Oh, yes. No.
Novus Engineering.
Yes.
On behalf of Granite State Glass, requesting major site plan approval for construction of a new 8,100 square foot building, parking, and associated site improvements at 135 Old Turnpike Road in the Industrial District.
Okay, and again, I don't have, this isn't right. So do we have a public, determination of completeness component on that at
So
all?
staff has previously determined this application complete, and so we can go ahead and open the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Come on up. Okay, can we get a quick report from staff on this?
Sure. The applicant, this is for the demolition of an existing building and the construction of a Granite State Glass new facility. We've met with them. They've addressed the majority of the comments that we provided last month. I think there's some things that they're working through with engineering, but I believe they addressed the ADR comments already, which they'll talk about tonight, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Hi, guys. Could you state your name for the record?
Tim O'Connor with Granite State Glass.
Sorry.
Sorry. Good evening. I'm Erin Lambert with Novus Engineering.
Okay, tell us about your project. Congratulations on a new building.
Thank you.
It's great.
We're excited.
Yeah.
Let me have Tim tell you a little bit about the building, and then I'll go into a quick summary of the site plan.
All right, so we're obviously going to demo the existing garage and improve the space, put on a large 8,000 foot building. It's garages on the backside. The front's going to be all glass. We're excited to improve that location. It needs it desperately.
So to give you a little bit of an orientation, it's the property's at 135 Old Turnpike Road. It's located west of Sandy's Pet Shop and directly across the street from the New Hampshire Federal Credit Union. So as Tim mentioned, it's an 8,100 square foot building, partial second story for storage and eventually to be built out as office space. So the front is their display area, so all the customers would be coming in there to visit the showroom. And then on the east side, there's a series of overhead doors where they would be receiving cars for glass replacements or product coming into their facility. Proposing to build 27 parking spaces. All of the stormwater is infiltrated in an underground infiltration gallery, providing water, sewer, all city systems, connecting to all city systems. And that is about it. It's pretty straightforward.
So orientation-wise, if I'm standing at the credit union and Sandy's is on the right-hand side, that's the pet store, right? Sandy's.
Correct.
Your building would be just to the left of the pet store, so right?
Correct.
So the front of the building, I'll see from the street. The bays on the side, I'd see from the welding. Is there a welding place next to it or something, or maybe a?
That's on the opposite side.
No, that's on the opposite side.
Yeah, it's on the opposite side.
So actually, if you look up here where the cursor is, this is the driveway. So if you're coming out of the credit union, you'd be
Yeah.
right here.
Okay.
So customers will drive in and access the front of the building, and that's the predominant streetscape that you'll see.
Yep.
And then this is the side that has the overhead doors and receiving.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the board on this application? Byron?
Question for staff?
Yes.
And no concerns from architectural design, I'm sorry, no questions from, no issues with the Heritage Commission relative to the structure? I'm not familiar with the existing structure, so. The tear down.
From the Heritage Commission or
from
the Design
Heritage-
Review Commission?
From the Heritage Commission, I'm sorry.
I don't think the Heritage Commission, they don't comment on new construction.
No, but
There's a tear down
demolition.
involved.
There's a demolition involved.
Oh, I don't, they.
I don't think this has
the-
come to, I
It may
sit
not
on the
have triggered.
Heritage.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think
it may
it's
not
either
have
old enough or
triggered.
big enough.
Okay, fine, fine. Again, I'm not familiar with the building, so I
I
was
don't think it's
just,
old enough.
All right.
Just knowing the space, the area, but I don't know that for sure.
all right.
I'd be interested in the architectural design comments. I was at the architectural design meeting, so I
Yeah.
remember vividly some of the comments. So if we could address those
Sure.
and what was brought up at the meeting and how those were addressed.
Yes, there were two recommendations from the Architectural Design Review Committee. The first one, the easier one to explain, was they requested that the garage doors, rather than the white that was submitted on the rendering, be changed to a gray, which would be more in keeping with the color of the siding, and so we've made that change. And then the other architectural feature was a change to the windows on the front. They were asking that the windows on the side be reduced in size so that they were a little more elongated, which matched the three center glass features. And both of those comments have been addressed and incorporated in the revised rendering that we'll submit.
And aside from that, I think Architectural Design Review was happy with the design and the layout. So just for the record, you guys are using this front display space. That's all window space that we're seeing there, floor to ceiling, and those big three open spaces. Is it all?
Other than the floor lines, it'll be spandrel glass, so you won't be able to visually see through it.
Right.
But yeah, the glass will span from the floor up to the top.
Inside, you'll be able to see out, but you can't see really in to see.
Nope,
it.
at the floor lines, you won't be able to see in either direction. That'll cover up that floor line space.
I know there was discussion at Architectural Design Review for the space. You wanted to display some of the products. The windows, looking at it from the street, they all look the same, right? They're not gonna be different windows or different looks, or
Correct.
one's mirrored or one's, okay.
Correct.
Okay. Carol?
So this glass that you can't see through from the outside, does it reflect?
We're gonna keep in the spirit with the same glass, so it'll just be an opaque spandrel piece, so that you won't see the actual structure that's built up on that floor slab on floor 2. but it'll be glass on the front. It'll look similar to everything else that you see in Concord and Spanville locations, which are floor lines.
I'm just trying to understand if birds are going to see it as reflective space, or are they going to see it as
It'd be
opaque
clear
space?
glass on the outside, then it'll be blue to match with the blue storefront and the curtain wall that's there, so it'll keep with the same spirit. So birds are not going to be able to fly into it because they're not going to see through it. It'll be a blue skin behind the glass.
Okay. Just,
And it's actually 2 pieces on each curtain wall on each opening, so it's total 6 pieces of glass.
Okay.
okay.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Steph, I've never heard of a Chinese elm. I've never seen one for sale. I don't know if you guys researched it or not, but it's not native, but it's also a zone 5 to 9. So you might want to get some background.
Well, I'm sorry, what was
The
it?
Chinese elm,
Oh, okay.
it might not be the best.
Okay.
I don't know. And the name LA makes me think it's maybe narrow, but I don't know. I did a little research.
Those
but
are those the street trees?
It's in the parking lot, so it should be a legit shade tree. But we've also been trying to encourage like native trees, and I think zone 5 is
Okay.
cutting it a little.
We're willing to make
Yeah,
those
I'll work with my
changes.
landscape architect
Yeah.
to make sure they're native. They're
Well,
going to want them to be.
they're from like Korea. And
Right, they're going to want them to be readily available.
Yeah.
and
Is there a
easy to
sidewalk
be-
over there? Is there a sidewalk there?
There's a sidewalk that runs right along on Old Turnpike Road, yes.
Okay, did I see another hand? Anybody? Any comments from staff? Any member of the audience wish to address this application? Nope. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We have a couple items to address here. Let me get back to my report. This does work better than the Chromebooks.
When it works, when
it works.
you figure it out.
All right, so in your reports here, we've got
You don't think it,
a couple of items. We've got 2.1 is to grant architectural design review approval for the proposed site layout, building elevations with the conditions noted in section 1.2 above, which is the applicant went before ADR. In the December meeting, the committee voted to recommend approval of the application as submitted with conditions. Consider the windows in the front facade to have more vertical, to unify the portions of the window openings with suggestions to narrow the width, and the overhead garage doors be a muted color with a suggestion of light gray. Both those items have been addressed, so if somebody'd like to make a motion to grant ADR approval outlined in 2.1.
I'll move that.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 2.2 is to grant the major site plan approval with the proposed commercial development subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions noted below, and that is precedent condition 1 and 2, and then subsequent conditions 1, 2, 3, and 4. If someone would like to make a motion to grant that major site plan approval as outlined.
I move that we grant major site plan approval with precedent conditions 1 and 2 and subsequent conditions 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Well said. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
luck.
much. Good evening.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. What's that? Yes, you can.
So just for the board, for whatever reason that we're not sure why, in the pads, item 7A was a subdivision for Betty Lou Nichols at
Yeah.
110 Lakeview Drive. It got dropped for some reason and on our agendas. So the next,
Everything moved
right,
up?
so the next item is 7E. The public has the correct agenda that's accessible to them online, and the Chromebooks have the correct agenda. And this is correct here also. So just we apologize, we're not sure why that happened with the pads, but it dropped item 7A.
Okay.
So right now
Back
we're
to the
on,
original, too.
right now we're on item 7E, which is the state of New Hampshire requesting.
7D.
D.
It's D on your
D.
books because it dropped that at
Okay,
7A.
so it's E in the
So it's
public.
actually 7E for everyone who has the correct agenda and the public.
Everyone who has the correct agenda.
Right.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is 7E in our agenda. The state of New Hampshire requesting planning board approval in accordance with RSA 674.54 for construction of addition to the State Archive building at 71 Fruit Street in the institutional district. Hi, guys, come on up. We have public component to this, public hearing component, or no?
Yep, this is actually correct.
Okay, so this is right. Okay, so we have got,
Yes, there's a public
we have got a public hearing component to this, so we will open the public hearing and invite the applicant up to the table. If you guys could state your name for the record.
David Gould, sorry. Go ahead. David Goulet, Public Works.
Theodore Cupper, professional engineer and administrator for the Division of Public Works.
Roger Dignard from Dignard Architectural Architects for the project.
Dignard Architects is our consultant on the job.
Okay, and tell us about your project.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to keep it brief, and I'd be willing to answer any questions that the board may have. Basically, what we're looking at is a 40,000 square foot addition to the existing archives building. It's a warehouse addition. The use of the building and the property hasn't changed. We're just expanding that use. We're planning on relocating Industrial Drive in order to make room for an expanded parking facility there. There's currently 44 parking spaces at the location now, and we're looking to expand it to 81 spaces. And I might mention that the state is open to offering the use of that lot for municipal purposes after hours for sporting events across the street. And we've actually planned a walkway for the parking lot to coincide with the city's walkway across South Fruit Street, which is directly across from Memorial Park. We're looking at removing 7 trees from the property, and we're relocating 19 trees with this project. We've received comments from Architectural Design Review, from the Planning Department, and from Engineering. And without getting into specifics, although I'd be willing to answer any questions about the comments, many of the comments we're incorporating into our contract in the form of an addendum.
An addendum to our packet?
An addendum to our contract.
To your contract?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
If anyone has specific questions
I
about
do
some
have
of
a
the
couple.
comments?
Yeah, so I just want to, again, clarify for everybody, make sure everybody knows where this is. So this is right at the top of the hill, just across the street from the entrance to Memorial Field. So the parking lot across from Memorial Field. There's existing trees there now. I think there's a ball field to the left. If you're looking at it, there's a ball field over to the left and the parking lot to the right. I know there was significant talk about, not at the Architectural Design Review meeting, but after the meeting with Elizabeth Durfee-Hengen, specifically about the granite posts, the gateway posts.
Yes, sir.
Very
Yep.
architecturally significant.
The Lafayette
The
posts.
Lafayette posts, very
Yes, sir.
historically significant. She wanted to make sure that those were duly noted wherever they may end up, if they're going to end up in the same,
They're
not
going to
not in
be-
the same spot, but are they going to act in the same manner?
So the posts are of historical significance, and we recognize that. The new parking lot that we're constructing has a center island, and there's a walkway that cuts through the island to allow pedestrians who park on one side of the parking lot to cross that island and access the archives building. And we're placing the granite posts on either side of that
great.
walkway as a feature of the center island.
Perfect. Probably a better spot than they're in now.
Safer anyway.
Safer, yeah,
Probably less likely
absolutely.
to be clipped.
Okay, any other, Suzanne?
So you're expanding the parking,
That's correct.
and are you going to be doing any planting in the center of the parking lot?
There's none planned there right now, but that's of importance to the state. We're simply waiting for the bids to come in to see how much money we might have available to spend on additional landscaping.
Well, you might save money. It's going to cost a lot of money to move the evergreens.
Yes?
So maybe you would just not replant the evergreens and you would plant the shade trees in the parking lot. Because I think that's where the shade trees are really, if it's a money issue, I think that that is going to be the area that suffers the most by not having shade trees.
I agree with you on that,
So,
yes.
and the trees that you're moving are like evergreens?
I'm really not sure
It's
what the
expensive to-
species are of the
I think they're all
trees.
evergreens. That was my memory, because I remember they cut them all, they went through and cut everything down, and then they kind of replanted them all like little soldiers in a row, evenly spaced. Very creative.
Are they evergreens, David?
They're Norway spruce, there's two types. I forgot the second one, but that was a huge controversy. Someone almost lost their job.
Yep.
Believe it or not, because they went ahead and just cut trees. But the person who planted them, David Clapp, was very meticulous of where he put them. So he put them off from South Fruit, and if you notice, he layered them so they had room to grow.
Oh, yeah.
So
You'll be dead.
when yes, they would have been dead by now.
No,
So,
you'll be dead by the time they grow.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. So it's a big deal for David Clapp and others for us to destroy these trees. That's politically incorrect.
Well, I'm just saying. That,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've
I
had that
think-
battle.
Yeah, or maybe you can like cluster them because they're so far apart. But I think that I would be surprised if the state didn't have like $5,000 to plant some shade trees in the parking lot.
And
That would be my request.
again, this is an important issue for the state, and we do want to provide some shade trees in that parking lot facility. We just want to see what the bids are going to come back at. The bidding has been very volatile over the last 9 or 10 months. They've been all over the place, and as you know, we have money appropriated by the legislature for the project, and we are not allowed to go over that amount. So we simply want to see what that looks like.
Well, and if you spec out a 2.5-inch tree, they're not that expensive. Just saying. I know that they never really planted.
Point well taken.
They didn't plant anything at the new furnace that's outside at the state on Hazen Drive. Remember, they were where you
Oh, you mean the biomass?
Yeah, they didn't plant. They kind of.
I can't speak to that.
Yeah. But anyway.
That was not our project, so.
So you're moving, so I'm just trying to get my bearings here.
Yes,
So the road that's there now that goes into the complex is Industrial Drive, is that
That's
called?
correct.
So you're moving that down?
We are.
Okay, and and it's not clear to me on the plan here, but there's a lot of trees, a lot of round dots that I think are trees.
Those big black dots are
that
the
go
ones
right
that
through
are
the middle.
relocated.
So the ones that go through the middle of the road are coming out.
That's
And then
right.
you're gonna, so currently, I think people park on the grass. Is that gonna be, right now, at big sporting events, people will go down
I
into
see.
the grass on the right-hand side and park all over the place down in there. I'm guessing that if you open up the parking area and let them park there, they'll not park in the grass. Is that the intent?
I think that's the hope, sir, yes.
Great.
There's also a railing, this post, 4x4 post
Yep.
with rope.
Yep.
And the state put that in for the purpose of cars not parking right off the road.
Yeah.
So those are going to go back.
Okay.
We'd be very much interested in having the public park in the lot.
Absolutely.
In off hours during sporting events rather than parking on the grass.
Well, now everybody knows, so the millions of people watching will know that they can go over there once it's done and park over there.
Off hours is the
Off
key
hours,
phrase.
I gotta
there.
say, off hours, not during school. Any questions from staff or comments from staff?
Yeah, from engineering, there were a couple comments we had that I got a copy of your addendum